that raised up in the last few months from all over the higher education institute in Israel. And we like to understand and see how these kinds of solutions can help us deal with this challenge. So we ask Turnitin that we have a long relation and collaboration with Turnitin for a long time. We have some collaboration for, I think, 7, 8 years. And now we discuss it together to understand how Turnitin can help us and support us in the Higher Education Institute in Israel by make it more ethics, more responsibility, and make it part of our learning and teaching, and how this can help for evaluation and to improve teaching and learning. So we had a few discussions with Daniel and Jayson, and we will have a presentation today that present your solution or alternative solution for these kinds of options. If there will be interest, I hope there will be some interest, of course. We will be able to maybe have some ongoing collaboration and integrate it in one of the solution, maybe in one of the institute or more. And after this session, we'll have a discussion and see how can we integrate these kinds of tools in our solution. I hope you all know our toolkit, Meital toolkit that we offer to the Institute as part of a consortium agreement. And if there will be some interest around this tool, we'll be happy to integrate it as well. We know Turnitin, as I said, for a long time, and we like to see what the innovation and the new technology that you bring and how you deal with AI. So we're all curious. As I said, we will share this video with our colleagues, and we'll see later on the interest, and we'll continue this discussion. So, Daniel, the floor is yours, and thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Ali, for the kind words, and welcome everyone to this session. As you can see today, this will be something between a webinar and a live demo of our services, which are mainly for institutions that do have students or carry out research. The title of today's session will be Integrating AI Responsibly, with Jason Gibbson, which will be the key speaker in just a few minutes. The agenda will be the following. So this is just a brief introduction with, let's say, a complete overview of the solutions that we will show you during the live demo that will come next. What about Jason? So I know Jason for like little over 2 years, but he has been in the same in the company for more than 10 years, and he has built quite a huge network of institutions and educators. And today he will showcase how the services of Turnitin can save much time and make your work much more efficient. The real reason why we are here today is because we understood both from Turnitin and Meital that institutions are now facing high-stakes challenges. And the only way to tackle certain challenges nowadays is by using technology to nurture and understand where technology can make an impact. So internally, we actually pulled certain institutions and their most important people, so the leaders, the educators, and the students, and we found out that nearly 1 in 3 people which are part of this cohort are feeling that the partial use of AI is acceptable. But we will understand what should we consider like a partial use of AI. And nearly 2 out of 3 students recognizing that are basically using a shortcut in the learning path, by using artificial intelligence. That's why as Turnitin, we believe that there is not a one unique solution for every institutions, but it depends on what are, first of all, the challenges that the institution is facing, and how can we adapt the solution to actually not just alleviate the problem, but solve it fully. When it comes to Turnitin, this is probably the most important slide, as the next one that is coming. So we are working with more than 16,000 institutions worldwide, and we cover around 55 million students, which they have delivered around 150 millions of exams, and we are operating in more than 185 countries. So this also pictures how we have, let's say, a view that is not only focused on certain parts of the world, but with a world view itself. What is plagiarism? Well, plagiarism is matching a content that is being submitted, let's say, by a student with everything that we have in our database. So these are data that we use to compare the submission with plagiarism. And we use three different sources: the student paper database, which counts around 2.4 billion student papers; Internet Archive, which is divided into 40 billion current web pages and 14 billion that are archived; and the scholarly publications, which cover around 85,000 journals and around the 250 published items from journals itself. What literally are we trying to solve are three different, let's say, burdens and challenges from the institution. So the time constraint, because we understand that educators, they do have a fixed time to, let's say, evaluate or give, let's say, unique values of education to students. So the more the bigger the class size, the more difficult it is to manage time. Secondly, how can a professor give feedback that is consistent and most importantly can be perceived by the student as something that can be better? And lastly, the student engagement. So how can students engage and get better by what the professor told them to do? This is where we will try to fix these three challenges that I brought up just now. Feedback Studio, which and Similarity that you will see in the next slide, are trying to take care of what the problem stands for. Feedback Studio has a core of similarity checking, which gives a similarity report, match categories, and integrity flags. The most important feature, which I think you will like quite a lot, are the grading and feedback, which gives the possibility to create a rubrics, quick marks and comments, and to understand the grammar, as well as the option to have originality, which is what we indicate as the AI writing detection capabilities, and also an extended content database. Similarity is instead a portion of what we will see with Feedback Studio. So we would have the possibility to have the similarity report, the match categories, and the integrity flags, plus, of course, the opportunity to use originality as the AI writing detection and the authorship with an extended database. Well, I just mentioned authorship, but what is actually embedded in this world? So we, as Turnitin, give the possibility to educators in one of the 16,000 institutions that we work with to do checks and understand what is right and wrong about unelaborate of a student. So then if there are, let's say, high values of these, let's say, during these checks, then of course the academic committee should first of all understand what is the severity of the problem and how they can solve it. So understanding first of all what is the problem and efficiently gather let's say all the facts together and the insights. This is basically what we give as Turnitin to the educators, the possibility to. Now, I think I've already talked too much. Turnitin is literally easier to showcase rather than to talk about it. So I will stop sharing my screen and I will let Jason take over the floor and share the screen to go for the demo. I also advise, maybe before I leave, please let's keep it this interactive and entertaining. So if you have any question, feel free to ask them directly, or we will have 5-10 minutes at the end of the session to cover all of them. Thank you. And please, Jason, the floor is now yours.
No problem. Okay, so hopefully I'll switch my camera on. Hopefully the internet doesn't drop out. I've had a few internet issues, so if my camera all of a sudden goes off, that's why. Okay, so what I'll do is I will share my screen with you all so you can see. There we go. So what I thought would be best to start with is the Feedback Studio tool, which is probably our most well-known tool. It's used by a number of institutions across the globe. Probably around about 70% of our users actually use this tool, roughly around that number. The good thing about this tool is that everything is in one place. So because it's where we build a lot of our enhancements, it means that you've got all of the features like feedback and grading, similarity check-in. And if you also add on the originality element, you also have the AI and contract cheating elements. Now, this would normally integrate in your LMS. I know that many institutions in your region use Moodle as an LMS. So Moodle, Blackboard, Canvas, D2L, all of those work absolutely fine, and a number of others. So I'm showing you this just through turnitin.com. So you've got a nice, easy, kind of replicable view. So I'll just go into the assignment itself. So I've already created this. This is our assignment, which will have all of the student submissions. It will load up in a second. And you can see there, we've got the things like the title, the start date, the due date, and the feedback release date. What I'll do is I'll just show you really briefly kind of what that looks like from the top. So we have our title. Again, you would do this within your learning management system. You have the start date, which is when the students can actually start writing. So from that point, that's when they can start, start writing. They can start submitting, should I say, to this assignment. So they can upload a file, they can check it for similarity, they can, get some kind of instant feedback in terms of that from the tool. Then the due date is the date when the student should have submitted. So at that point, that is when they can no longer submit. If you allow late submissions and they haven't already submitted, then they can submit after the due date. But the feedback release date is a really important date. So that is when all of the students will receive their grades and their feedback. And at that point, the grade will push through into the LMS for you as well. You can do all of the grading in Feedback Studio. So you have the option to attach a rubric. So I'll go into here. You can see there I've got a weighted range rubric, which I can use. And then I can go into my report settings and I can choose whether or not I want to store papers in the repository or not. If I want to check against all of the databases that Daniele just mentioned, and then also when we want to generate those reports. So if we choose at time of submission and we allow, you can see there we're allowing resubmissions, then what will happen is that'll just override the previous submission each time. And then on the due date, that'll be the final one. So that's basically allowing the student to see multiple. If they only see it on the due date, that basically means that the student can upload their paper prior to the due date, but they won't receive any similarity or anything like that until the due date itself. Or you can actually choose to not allow students to view the similarity report at all, which is rare, but some institutions do that. You have translated matching. There is a number of languages that it supports. So I'll just quickly open this up just to show you basically which languages we have. So you can see there is a large number of those in there, and you can see Hebrew is in here, and so is Arabic, which I know are 2 languages that were important for you. So basically what that means is if a student gets something that was originally English and translates it into one of those languages, then you will be able to see the original text match in there as well. You also have the ability to put in some filters, so you can exclude the bibliography, quotations, or any matches smaller than a certain number of words. And then save that, and that will be your settings. So you can see there we are allowing resubmissions, late submissions are allowed, and we can see that we've already got our submissions in here. So what the student has done is they've come through, either if they're in the learning management system, they just go to the assignment in there, they upload their file, and then that will return a similarity score. For you as an instructor, if you're using the originality add-on, for English, Spanish, and Japanese submissions, if you just so happen to have any of those, then you will see an AI score as well if you use that originality add-on. So that will show you whether or not a student has utilized AI within their submission. Also, as well, you'll see the similarity, and you'll also see flags. So if there is any characters, for example, if the majority of the text is in Latin text and all of a sudden there is Cyrillic or anything like that, then you'll be able to see if there is any kind of document manipulation. So I'll open up this similarity score first, because that's kind of what we're known for. And we'll go through this kind of top to bottom. Now, I said before that you see everything in one place, and that is the case with Feedback Studio. So you can see at the top, I can literally move between the similarity score, the AI, the flags, all just by clicking the top, and you can see that just changes what happens on the paper. On the right-hand side, what you can see is the match groups. So these are available for English submissions. If it is a non-English submission, you would just see the sources panel, which will tell you the percentages of the matches that have been found. So you can see there we've got this publication, which is matching to this section here. You can see I've already put a comment in there. That one is cited and quoted. So if you are looking at an English submission, you will see that cited and quoted option if they have put citations and quotations in. Again, if it's in English, you'll also see if there is a missing citation. So this one here is quoted but not cited. And then we also have our missing quotation, which is basically the opposite way around. So we have our citation, but no quotation. Now, granted, we would still want to see some paraphrasing in here, so the student shows us they actually understand the source material, and they're not just basically copying, pasting, and relying on that. But the idea of these match groups is to basically show you beyond just the overall percentage. So you've got 51% overall similarity from the largest database in the world. That is then broken down into not cited or quoted, missing quotations, missing citation, and cited and quoted. Again, if it's not in English, it's still very, very easy to review. You just have it in the side there, so you can see we have 13% is from a publication. We have that 9% from that internet match, another publication here as well. And if you do have any student matches, you'll be able to see that there is a match, but you will not be able to see the name of the students from the other institution. Even if they're in the same region as you, just to protect that student's identity and obviously the data that you have. We don't want everyone just being able to see that. If you decide that you do want to remove something from the report, then you can just literally hit exclude this text, and that will then remove that match. And if I delete this comment, you'll be able to see it even easier. There we go. So I've just removed that really nice and easy. And if I wanted to, I could pop it back in again just by clicking that back in. And it goes back in really, really simply. If I wanted to remove any of this kind of information prior to this, then you can see I've got my filters here, and I can get rid of the bibliography, quotations, cite text, or small matches, for example, and then I can apply those filters. Now, this is only available for text. So if there is any images added to the document, we do not do image similarity. It's not something that we do right now. But we do have partnerships with organizations that do provide that tool. So if that is something that interests you, then we can discuss that further. And Daniele can give you the right information. So I've added in those filters. You can see now that we have 21% overall similarity. And if I go back, that removes that big match there because it is cited and quoted. So we've got rid of that. And we've got rid of a number of others. And if I wanted to, I could put those filters back off again and apply those again really nice and simple. So it's really intuitive, really easy to use, doesn't require a huge lift in terms of that. Now, in terms of the actual similarity, it's very easy for us to detect similarity because we are looking at content in a database that has over 8 petabytes of data. And if you want to get an idea of how much 8 petabytes is, if you get a GoPro and set it to record for 100 years on HD, that's about 8 petabytes. So it's a lot. We're checking against that, and it normally takes us anywhere between 2 minutes to, maybe a couple of hours if it's a really big paper, but no longer than 24 hours. So that will allow us to give you a result very, very quickly, but we always prioritize accuracy. Now, speaking of prioritizing accuracy, that's when we focus on the AI the AI detection side of things. So our AI methodology is basically what we want to show is where has a student used AI, but we're not making a judgment call on whether or not the student has misused AI. That is for you to decide. Now, use of AI varies across different assignments, different institutions, and what some institutions find acceptable, other institutions might find unacceptable. The idea of this tool is to show you when a student has used AI and where they've used it, so that you can then have a conversation with that student. Now, I mentioned accuracy. It's probably one of the most important things. When we look at what we measure in terms of accuracy, we look at a false positive rate. So for us, an incredibly accurate tool is for in our world is less than a 1% false positive rate. And that is what our AI detection tool has. And the reason it has that is for a number of reasons. We do a lot of testing, for one. We created this using over 700,000 pre-GPT essays, so that are human written. And that is kind of our source of truth. So knowing whether or not when we do an update, if it is still accurate. So to prevent it giving you false positives, when you see a score you will basically not see a score that is less than 20%. So if it goes less than 20%, we won't flag it. We'll just put an asterisk in there. And that is basically to make sure that there is no potential or very small potential of a false positive, because as it goes below 20%, so if less than 20% of the text is AI generated, even if it's a small amount, we don't show it because the chances of it being a false positive increase exponentially. And our thought process is we would rather miss something than falsely accuse a student. And, we want to support students. We don't just want this to be, a tool that can be used in anger, basically. So we don't want this to just be a tool that's like you're looking for students who are using AI and you're catching them out. This is there to have conversations with the students. Now, you will see that it's broken down into 2 areas. So if the student gets the text and puts it through something like, they generate it in ChatGPT and then they put it into Quillbot, things like that to paraphrase it, you will see that. You will also see if text has been ran through a humanizer. If they've done that, we have made updates to the model to be able to detect that as well. So if it's basically the second one is if it's been paraphrased, and this first one is for everything else, basically. Like Daniele said, if anyone does have any questions, please feel free to ask at any point. But if there aren't any, then I will move on to the flags and really briefly just show you what they are. So the flags are basically showing you 2 things. So we have hidden text. So basically, if the student has got a section of text that is, let's say they've changed the text color to white and they've used it to hide a certain word. So basically, we make that one giant word. Or they fill in white space with just words to try and make their word count larger. That's one way. Replace characters could be that they're using letters from a different alphabet, which look very similar to yours. So that would be very, very kind of obvious if they have tried to mislead the system. And also a common way of students trying to evade AI detection as well. But then you can clearly see what they've done. Once you've looked at all of that, that's when you can start providing feedback to the students. So as long as we've looked at, we look at the details here, we can see that in this file, we know that if the author name matches and all of those things, which in this case, it does not. That's that contract cheating element. And if there's any, issues in the text, spelling differences and versus American English versus British English or any contract cheating keywords. Once we've looked at all of those things, then we can start providing feedback to the student. Now, hopefully you don't see a ton of students that are contract cheating or are, plagiarizing completely, or 100% of their essay has been generated by AI. So you can actually give them some really useful feedback. So what I'll do is I'll just delete this comment here, and I will go down and we will focus on this section here. So this student here has done a good job with this section. They have actually cited and quoted, but we would like to see some paraphrasing. So if I click on this, I could put a comment in and just do an inline comment, and I could change the color of this to, let's say, we'll say blue. And we would say, nice job, needs paraphrasing. Now you can see there that that's not really going to fit great, because we want to write a lot of text there. It's sitting over the top of the text. So an inline comment maybe isn't what we want to do. What we want to do instead is we want to put a comment in here. Now I could highlight the text if I wanted to make it really specific. And I could put a comment in and I could say, this is great. However, you need to paraphrase. Now, the chances are that you're going to say something like that again. A lot of students make the same mistakes. A lot of students do the same things right. So what we can do instead is we could save this as what we call a quick mark. And a quick mark is basically a comment that you can reuse, and you can actually share these sets of quick marks with other instructors over time. So let's delete this one. And instead, I'm going to use a quick mark this time. So I'm going to click on there. I'm going to go to this little lightning bolt icon, and that's my quick marks. And you can see there, I've got all of these different ones, and I have paraphrase ideas. So I can drop that in, and you can see if I open that up, it's got a description of what it is, which is great. And then what I could do is I could link that comment to the rubric. And let's say we want to put this in, we'll put this in citations. And then that means that the student knows, and I know, that the reason why they either gained or maybe lost some points is because of some of the things they've done, which is a really common thing in pedagogy of linking feedback to goals. And the goal here is to get the best possible score on the rubric. Speaking of the rubric, I have a weighted range rubric, which has decimal grading. So if I want to move this around, you can see there I've got 2 different scores for does not meet expectations. So for evidence, we will go with meets expectations. For structure, we will give them exceeds expectations. Conclusion, not great. Citations, they're okay, but not really. Let's say they meet expectations. And then formatting, we'll put that there. And then once I finish that, that's 2.8 out of 6, which gives me 46.67 out of 100. Now, why are we being so specific? That's because sometimes you want to give students very, very specific grades, especially if they're on a grade boundary, so you can be a lot more accurate with your grading. Now, once that is done and you've graded everything, you've provided feedback, then all of that information stays within this document. So when the student reaches that feedback release date, they can log in and they can see all of these comments. If I go to the feedback side, you can leave a summary. They can see any comments that you've pinned. So if I want to pin that quick mark right there we go. And I go to my summary. There we go. You can see there's a couple of pinned comments. The student knows they're the things they need to focus on. So basically, that's what I need to look at straight away. And then you can just go to the next student and open that up. And you can see there I have my next one, and then do the same thing, go to my next student, and so on and so forth. So you can repeat that process, making it really, really quick to provide feedback, because you could use a lot of those quick marks to get through the kind of generic feedback really quickly and then focus on more specific feedback that's individual to students. We are going to be in the next few months, we're going to be adding in audio and video feedback as well. Some of you that are familiar with the older version of Feedback Studio will have probably seen the basically that audio comments. We are modernizing that a little bit. So yeah, so you'll see new audio and video feedback, which will be really, really useful for students as well. Now, we also mentioned Similarity. Similarity is a tool which, instead of being class and assignment based, if you use it through the website, it is folder based. The other reason why you might want to use Similarity could be that you would use it with, let's say, a very specific integration. So if you had a custom learning management system that wasn't the likes of Moodle, Blackboard, Canvas, D2L, Microsoft, anything like that, it was a very, a local solution, things like that, then this would be able to be utilized for custom integrations. Now, it doesn't have the feedback elements. It does have the similarity. You can add AI to it as well. I won't go into it in a huge amount of detail, but basically you have, if you use it through the website, you have a folder-based solution. So you can go in there, you can create your folders, you can add your content to them, but the overall kind of technology behind it is pretty much identical. So if I go into this and load this up, you can see it's the same report. Now, the only thing missing here is obviously the AI, the feedback and the rubrics, but you can add AI to this. You can add originality to this and that contract cheating element as well. And if you are, really looking to use the feedback tools to allow the students to develop further and, advance students further, then that Feedback Studio tool is going to be the one that's going to benefit you the most. Now, we've gone through that quite high level. Does anyone have any questions about anything specific, or does anyone have anything that they want me to go into more detail on? Because I know, obviously, we've still got around about 20 minutes left. Or does anyone have any questions?
I see there was one from Eugenie, which was indeed towards the picture copying, but you answered it.
Yep.
So I guess there are no other questions. Just wait a couple of seconds. Maybe there is someone who's typing it.
I know that we briefly touched on authorship, as it's something that's included within the originality add-on. Although we didn't view that. Were there any questions about the different product offerings and the solution sets? I know Turnitin is providing kind of two different product solutions with add-ons available to the institutions. Were there any follow-up questions on that component?
Well, if not, I guess we were clear in explaining everything. And yeah, as I said before, Turnitin is much easier to use and showcase rather than talk about it. You will see as well how intuitive and easy to use is, given that, as we support many thousands different institutions, the key there is to make our products easier to use so that they can save much time on your site. Ali, should we, because we allocated them some time after the presentation to answer any questions, but I guess there are not any.
Mm-hmm. So I think it's if there's no any other questions, we can maybe summarize the session. But from our perspective, it's a very interesting solution that we'd like to investigate a little bit, and we'll continue the discussion with you and to see how to maybe integrate it in any options that the Higher Education Institute will need here in Israel. We know that we mentioned that in our discussion, there is some other solution, but it's a good opportunity to try and see how Turnitin is answer these challenges. So I think if there is no any questions and it's clear to the audience, then we can maybe close this session. But we will continue the discussion and we'll send the recordings, as I said, and maybe some more details about the options. I just mentioned that at the beginning, and I like to mention that again, that we know that Turnitin have a long experience with plagiarism, and it's one of the biggest company in the world that deals with this kinds of solution, and we know that for a long time. And I know that there is some higher education institute in Israel that are already using that in a small scale, but there is some good experience here. And maybe we will somebody will contact us about it and see if they like to have any kind of pilot or short use of that solutions, small use in a small scale, and we will maybe offer that as Meital to the partners and see if there is any interest around that. So I think it's a long-term discussion that we have to continue.
Sure, is definitely a stance that we see not just now, but also in the future, how we can collaborate and make the life of professors within the Meital consortium easier. Thank you, Ali, for the time and to have created this event for us.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation and your time, and we'll continue this discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone, and wish you a lovely rest of the day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.